The fundamental difference is that the county decided it wanted to advantage certain kinds of things that help the community as a whole. And the difference between a nonprofit event or an educational event is that it provides benefit to our community as a whole. The nonprofits raise funds and distribute them widely through the community. The educational organizations do a lot for our community as a whole. So we're giving them, this ordinance, not we, but this ordinance is giving them a benefit. That's the difference.
Let me, Danielle, before I get to you, I want to go to Karen. I hate putting our staff on the spot because they're staff. But if we could go back to, I mean, how, from the original direction of the Board of Supervisors in 2002 to where we're at on Thursday's meeting before the Planning Commission, how, I mean, in your estimation, how different is it from that direction from 2002 to where they are now? Is it?
Well, the direction we got from the board was actually 2004.
2004, excuse me.
We speed things along.
Okay.
Was to facilitate the symphony.
Right.
That, to be honest, this draft, I have no idea what permit level the symphony will get at this point, because the draft is it's not at a level that decisions haven't been made, so the big decisions haven't been made.
So it originated with a problem with the symphony. Not basically, every year they needed to get a permit, and that was
That's correct.
Cumbersome, difficult.
Yeah, it was a public hearing here before the board.
Right.
And then the second direction was ag tourism, and we didn't get specific direction. However, I do recall that the board told us at that time to not take uses away.
Okay, that's important. Andrew, 1 minute, please.
I'd like to respond to the commercial versus nonprofit question, and in particular, Ms. Habriel's statement that because the Sierra Club is a nonprofit, therefore we're a special interest. The fact that there's a special interest category in the Events Ordinance is something we have no control over. It's just there. And the fact that it makes things easier for us is good. It also makes things easier for everybody else. As Ms. Prosciutto mentioned, $89 and half an hour instead of 8 months and $5,000. In terms of how this affects what we do, we were not ever opposed to the ordinance. To say that nonprofits were originally opposed, we're not, a big black wall. The Sierra Club was always in favor of it because we were in favor, frankly, of the idea of having rules and regulations for how all people holding events, including nonprofits, would be regulated, when currently, there really aren't any. So we had no problem with it before or after in that regard, in terms of how it's specifically affecting us.
Okay. 1 minute, if you could, please.
Yeah, I just want to just correct a little something. I didn't say you were a special interest because you were a nonprofit. I said that having read your editorial some years ago about the difference between special interest and public interest and how nonprofits generally did represent the public interest, that in this particular case, because of the preferential treatment that you're given, not because you're a nonprofit or because the stuff you do isn't valuable, but that in this case, you're really in the position of a special interest, because the public interest would actually require that there have been some studies as to how this is actually going to affect the public interest. And when you do the data and you do, the economic impact, and you also see that the nonprofits are actually the ones that are having the huge events. They're not having weddings for 125 people. So in this case, I feel that you are the special interest. There's nothing wrong with that. And I applaud you for saying that, hey, for me, this makes it a lot easier. And it's also one reason that this is how the proponents are able to say, we're really streamlining the process. See, if you're a nonprofit, it's streamlined.
Let me throw this back to Jackie and Daniela then. Do you have information on based on the proposed ordinance that you have seen, what the economic impact might be on some of the business owners that are part of your coalition, or the agriculturalists that are part of the Farm Bureau?
No, we haven't done any survey, but we do know that there will be some impact. There's a lot of our growers out there that are participating in special events on ag land. Obviously, it's allowable right now. But Cabo has done an excellent job, and I'll just pass that over to Daniela.
Thank you. If you walked in and you saw the graphs up on my left, we've just completed 2 surveys, one that was sent to landowners and one that was sent to affected business owners. Now, we've only been in existence for about 6 weeks, so we hope to actually keep gathering the data. We wish somebody else who were really economists and statisticians would undertake this, because we're not, and for all we know there may be flaws. But if you look at the data, and we have it both for landowners and for affected business owners, 97% of whom are against this ordinance, the economic impact is absolutely extraordinary because it ripples through the entire economy. If the landowner can't generate income from supplemental income from non-ag events, they don't go shopping at Home Depot. They lay off the landscape contractors, etc. If the caterer can't do businesses on rural weddings, yes, they can still do the winery dinners for $100 or $150 a piece, but that $100 that you pay to go to the winery dinner, that doesn't all go to the winery. I mean, there's food and there's staff and there's all sorts of things. So to say that that substitutes for the ability to hold a private wedding on private land hosted for a fee, there's just really no, there's no equivalence. And one more thing, our data will show that of the people who host events, and there was something like around 60% or 54% of the ag landowners who responded did, and some smaller amount didn't. You listen to this, that there's going to be millions of people tromping around every day. You won't be able to sleep. Most of these properties hold, on the average, fewer than a dozen events a year. Most of them probably about a half a dozen. And the average number of attendees, and we didn't do our ranges the way I wish we had. We did 101 to 175. I suspect it's closer to 125, but we'll give you the 175. So you're talking about 6 to 10 on the average events. And this gives them supplemental income for the entire year in case there's a drought or pests or market fluctuations. They have to have something that can tide them over.
Let me go off of something that you said, and this is a question for Jackie. How would you protect the rights of a landowner who is surrounded by wedding sites, some of the rural residents in the neighborhoods where these events go? What would you propose in terms of their protection?
Well, that's where we were saying that we would like some reasonable regulations, and that be able to write an ordinance that planning staff can look at and be able to determine where are some of the problems that are going to occur on that. And so that is a case by case. And I think one of the problems is trying to do a one-size-fits-all. Because if you have a pocket, a problem area, does that mean that everyone else in the county has to abide by that?
Okay. Danielle, I'm going to continue with some of these. If you wouldn't mind filling out, and it just makes it easier, and we won't have to work Ermina too hard, unless we have irresistible speeches. But we do have some very good written questions, so I think we still have people going around with cards if you need that while we still have time. Here's a specific sites-related question. Specifically, how does the proposed ordinance impact the Santa Margarita Ranch and the Avila Golf Course with their special events? Kim, this is, I guess, the proposed ordinance, how would it impact the Santa Margarita Ranch and the Avila Golf Course with their special events?
I can answer more specifically about Santa Margarita Ranch, the estancia. I know that set of circumstances better. Under this proposal, the estancia has a historic combining designation, and it would be allowed to be a permanent event facility with a permit that runs with the land. They could host large commercial events of any type. Similarly, the San Luis Lighthouse, similarly the Octagon Barn, because these are historic ag structures that are there for, and having them in our community is a benefit for all of us. The golf course, I don't know, because I don't know the zoning of that, to be honest with you. I don't know the particular